Have you ever questioned if your beliefs about the afterlife are truly correct? Aisha Rafik never did, until she died for 7 minutes and saw beyond the veil of mortality. Like many of us, Aisha was certain her faith would secure her salvation. But her near-death experience revealed a shocking truth that's forcing people of all beliefs to reconsider what they think they know about eternity. Her story might just change the way you view your own spiritual journey. In the bustling city of Mississauga, Ontario, Aisha Rafik stood as a pillar of the Muslim community. At 47 years old, her life was a testament to unwavering faith and dedication to Islamic principles. Aisha's days revolved around the rhythms of Islamic practice, from the pre-dawn Fajr prayer to the nighttime Isha. Her home, adorned with intricate Arabic calligraphy and verses from the Quran, served as a physical manifestation of her spiritual devotion. As a respected pharmacist, Aisha balanced her professional life with her role as a community leader. She volunteered countless hours at the local mosque, organizing charity drives and leading women's study groups on Islamic teachings. Her reputation for kindness and wisdom drew many seeking guidance on matters of faith and daily life. Aisha's understanding of the afterlife was deeply rooted in Islamic theology. She believed in the day of judgment, where every soul would be held accountable for their deeds. Paradise awaited the righteous, while hellfire was the fate of those who strayed from Allah's path. This belief system shaped every aspect of her existence, influencing her decisions and interactions with others. Yet, unbeknownst to Aisha, a transformative experience lurked on the horizon, one that would challenge the very foundations of her faith. The certainty she held about the nature of salvation and the afterlife was about to be shaken to its core. In her role as a community leader, Aisha often counseled others on the importance of good deeds and adherence to Islamic law. She emphasized the concept of mizan, the scales on which one's actions would be weighed in the hereafter. Her own life was a careful balance of worship, charity, and righteous conduct, all aimed at tipping those scales in her favor. Aisha's influence extended beyond the mosque walls. She was a regular speaker at interfaith events, proudly representing Islam and fostering understanding among different religious communities. Her eloquence and deep knowledge of Islamic scriptures made her a formidable advocate for her faith. As the days passed, Aisha remained blissfully unaware of the impending shift in her spiritual journey. She continued to lead her life with the same fervor and dedication, her faith as unshakable as ever. The thought that her beliefs might be challenged never crossed her mind. After all, she had spent decades studying and practicing Islam, and her conviction in its truth was absolute. Little did Aisha know that her entire worldview was about to be upended. The beliefs she held dear, the teachings she had internalized and shared with others, were on the brink of a profound and unexpected transformation. The universe, it seemed, had other plans for Aisha Rafik. As fate would have it, an unforeseen health crisis was about to set in motion a series of events that would alter the course of Aisha's life forever. The spiritual odyssey that awaited her would test not only her physical resilience, but also the very essence of her faith. The journey ahead would lead Aisha to question everything she thought she knew about life, death, and the nature of divine truth. It started with unexplained bruises, a weariness that seemed to seep into her bones, and nosebleeds that came without warning. Aisha, ever the pillar of strength, dismissed these signs as mere stress. But her body was harboring a secret that would soon turn her world upside down and challenge everything she believed about life and death. As Aisha went about her daily routine at the pharmacy, the symptoms became more pronounced. The fatigue grew overwhelming, making even the simplest tasks feel like monumental efforts. Yet, she pressed on, attributing her condition to the demands of her busy life. Her dedication to her work and community blinded her to the urgent messages her body was sending. It wasn't until a particularly severe bout of gum bleeding that Aisha's colleagues intervened. Alarmed by the sight, her co-worker insisted she seek immediate medical attention. Reluctantly, Aisha agreed to a rushed hospital visit, unaware that this decision would mark the beginning of a life-altering journey. The atmosphere in the emergency room shifted palpably as doctors examined Aisha. Their faces, usually composed, betrayed a growing concern. The flurry of tests and hushed conversations among medical staff created a palpable tension. Aisha, still clinging to the hope that this was all an overreaction, found herself facing a diagnosis that would shatter her world. Acute promyelocytic leukemia, the words fell like hammer blows. This aggressive form of blood cancer, characterized by dangerously low platelet counts, put Aisha at risk for catastrophic bleeding. The gravity of her condition became clear as doctors explained the urgency of immediate treatment. Without swift intervention, she faced the possibility of fatal complications such as brain hemorrhages or other forms of internal bleeding. Despite the rapid initiation of treatment, Aisha's condition deteriorated at an alarming rate. The battle within her body intensified as she developed disseminated intravascular coagulation, a life-threatening condition where blood clots form throughout the body while simultaneously causing severe bleeding. The medical team worked tirelessly, their efforts a race against time. In a cruel twist of fate, Aisha's heart stopped. For 7 long minutes, she experienced clinical death, a cessation of blood circulation and breathing that would forever change her perception of reality. As medical professionals fought to revive her, Aisha's consciousness embarked on an otherworldly journey, transcending the boundaries between life and death. In those 7 minutes, suspended between worlds, Aisha witnessed visions that would challenge her deepest held beliefs. The spiritual odyssey that unfolded in those brief moments would prove more transformative than a lifetime of religious devotion. As her heart began to beat once more, Aisha returned with a profound realization. Her understanding of the afterlife, shaped by years of Islamic teaching, had been irrevocably altered. As consciousness slowly returned, Aisha found herself at the threshold of a new reality. The physical world came back into focus, but the spiritual realm she had glimpsed remained vivid in her mind. The journey that began with unexplained bruises and fatigue had led her to the very edge of existence and back. Now, as she opened her eyes to the concerned faces of doctors and loved ones, Aisha knew that her greatest challenge lay not in recovering from her illness, but in reconciling the truth she had witnessed with the life she had always known. In those 7 minutes of clinical death, Aisha's consciousness embarked on a voyage that defied everything she thought she knew about existence. As we explore her journey, prepare to question the very nature of reality itself. Aisha felt a strange sensation, as if she were floating above her own body. The chaotic scene in the hospital room below seemed distant and muffled. Doctors and nurses rushed around her physical form, performing chest compressions and shouting urgent commands. Yet, in stark contrast to the frantic activity below, Aisha experienced an overwhelming sense of peace and tranquility. As she adjusted to this new state of being, Aisha marveled at the clarity of her perception. Every detail around her seemed more vivid and defined than ever before. She noticed intricate patterns in the ceiling tiles she had never seen and could discern individual threads in the nurses' scrubs. This heightened awareness extended beyond the physical realm, allowing her to sense the emotions and intentions of those around her with startling accuracy. Suddenly, Aisha's attention was drawn to a phenomenon she had only heard described in stories, the fabled tunnel of light. It appeared before her not as a simple passageway, but as a living entity composed of pure radiance. This light possessed substance, intelligence, and purpose. It beckoned to her, exerting a gentle yet irresistible pull. Aisha felt herself being drawn forward, curiosity and anticipation building within her. As she moved through the tunnel, time seemed to lose all meaning. Aisha sensed that she was on the cusp of a profound revelation, one that would challenge everything she had ever believed about the nature of existence and the divine. The light grew brighter, enveloping her in its warmth and love. She felt a connection to something greater than herself, a vast consciousness that seemed to permeate every aspect of reality. Just as Aisha thought she might be consumed by the light, the tunnel opened up into a vast expanse. Before her, scenes from her life began to unfold like a cosmic tapestry. But these were not mere memories. They were vivid recreations, allowing her to experience pivotal moments from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Aisha witnessed her actions and their consequences ripple out through time, affecting not only those directly involved, but countless others in ways she had never imagined. She saw the kindness she had shown to a struggling student years ago blossom into a chain of compassionate acts that touched dozens of lives. Conversely, she also witnessed how a harsh word spoken in anger had led to a series of misunderstandings and hurt feelings that persisted for years. As these revelations unfolded, Aisha began to realize that her understanding of morality and faith was being fundamentally challenged. The clear-cut rules and judgments she had adhered to throughout her life seemed inadequate in the face of the complex web of cause and effect she now witnessed. She saw how her religious devotion had shaped her interactions with others, sometimes bringing comfort and guidance, but other times creating barriers and misunderstandings. With each new scene, Aisha's perception expanded, encompassing not just her own life, but the interconnected stories of countless others. She stood on the precipice of a greater understanding, one that would force her to confront the very foundations of her beliefs and her place in the grand tapestry of existence. As Aisha's consciousness expanded, she found herself reliving key moments of her life with an unprecedented clarity. Each scene unfolded before her, not as a mere memory, but as a vivid, multidimensional experience. She witnessed her actions ripple outward, touching the lives of others in ways she had never before comprehended. In one poignant moment, Aisha saw herself counseling a young Muslim woman struggling with her faith. At the time, Aisha had felt proud of her guidance, believing she was steering the woman towards righteousness. Now, however, she observed the long-term consequences of her advice. The woman had withdrawn from her non-Muslim friends, creating a divide that led to misunderstanding and isolation. This revelation sent a shockwave through Aisha's being, planting the first seeds of doubt about her understanding of morality and faith. Another scene revealed the impact of Aisha's charitable work at the mosque. She watched as the food packages she had helped distribute nourished families in need, their gratitude radiating outward and inspiring others to acts of kindness. Yet even in this positive memory, Aisha sensed a disquieting undercurrent. She realized that her motivations, while genuine, had been tainted by a desire for divine approval and fear of judgment. As the life review continued, Aisha found herself confronting the stark differences between Islamic and Christian concepts of judgment. She had always believed in the scales of justice, where good deeds would be weighed against sins. Now she witnessed souls being judged not by their actions alone, but by something far more profound, their relationship with the divine. The scenes began to shift more rapidly, each revelation building upon the last. Aisha saw her children, raised in the strict tenets of Islam, struggling with questions of faith and purpose. She realized, with a growing sense of anguish, that her teachings had led them away from a path of true salvation. The certainty she had felt in her lifetime began to crumble, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. As the life review reached its climax, Aisha stood face to face with the ultimate truth of her existence. She saw respected Muslim figures, individuals she had revered and emulated, descending into darkness. The shock of this vision reverberated through her very essence. In that moment, Aisha realized that her sincere devotion to Islam, while genuine, had been fundamentally misguided. The weight of this revelation threatened to overwhelm her, but Aisha found herself buoyed by an inexplicable sense of love and forgiveness. She understood that this journey was not one of condemnation, but of awakening. As the last scenes of her life faded away, Aisha felt herself being drawn towards a new phase of her spiritual odyssey. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, Aisha sensed the presence of other souls around her. These were not strangers, but individuals she had known in life. As she prepared to engage with these familiar yet transformed beings, Aisha knew that her understanding of the afterlife was about to be challenged even further. The boundaries between earthly existence and the spiritual realm began to blur, opening the door to encounters that would reshape her concept of eternity. The spiritual realm unfolded before Aisha, revealing a tapestry of souls from all walks of life. But among the diverse spirits, one figure stood out, a man whose teachings had shaped the lives of billions. What Aisha was about to learn about this revered prophet would challenge everything she thought she knew about her faith. As Aisha's consciousness adjusted to this ethereal plane, she found herself surrounded by familiar faces. These were the souls of people she had known in life, friends, family members, and respected community leaders. Yet, something was terribly amiss. The expressions worn by these spirits ranged from confusion to abject horror, particularly among those Aisha had revered as pillars of Islamic faith. To her shock, Aisha witnessed respected Muslim scholars and imams descending into darkness. These were individuals who had dedicated their lives to teaching Islamic doctrine, yet now they trembled in the face of a reality that contradicted everything they had believed. The sight shook Aisha to her core, forcing her to confront the possibility that her understanding of salvation was fundamentally flawed. As she observed this spiritual panorama, Aisha noticed souls from various religious backgrounds, Buddhists, Hindus, and adherents of other faiths. To her surprise, many faced the same fate as the Muslims she had known. This universal judgment challenged Aisha's long-held belief in the superiority of Islam as the path to salvation. The variety of souls and their fates prompted Aisha to ponder the true nature of divine judgment. She recalled theological debates about salvation and damnation from her studies of Islam, but now these concepts seemed woefully inadequate in the face of what she was witnessing. The scales of good deeds and sins that she had always imagined seemed absent here. Instead, there appeared to be a different criterion at work, one that transcended religious affiliation or adherence to specific doctrines. As Aisha grappled with these revelations, she sensed she was approaching a pivotal encounter. The spiritual atmosphere grew charged with anticipation, and Aisha felt drawn towards a presence she had revered throughout her earthly life. With a mixture of awe and trepidation, she found herself face to face with the figure of Muhammad. But the prophet she encountered was far from the noble messenger Aisha had always envisioned. To her utter astonishment, she perceived Muhammad not as a beacon of divine truth, but as a deceiver who had led countless souls astray. The realization hit her with the force of a spiritual earthquake. The man she had looked to as the seal of the prophets had distorted the truth about Jesus and led millions down a path that diverged from true salvation. This shocking revelation left Aisha reeling. The foundations of her faith crumbled around her as she was forced to confront the possibility that the Quran, which she had believed to be divine revelation, was in fact a clever deception that mixed truth with lies. The implications of this truth sent shockwaves through her being, reshaping her understanding of spiritual reality. As Aisha struggled to process this paradigm-shifting encounter, she sensed another presence drawing near. This new presence radiated an ineffable love and truth that both attracted and terrified her. Aisha knew, with a certainty that transcended her earthly understanding, that she was about to come face to face with the true nature of divinity, an encounter that would forever transform her concept of God, salvation, and the purpose of human existence. As the loving presence drew nearer, Aisha felt her entire being tremble with anticipation. Who or what could emanate such overwhelming love and truth? The answer would shatter every belief she had ever held about the divine. The radiance enveloped Aisha, filling her with a sense of peace and acceptance unlike anything she had experienced before. This presence felt familiar, yet utterly foreign to her Islamic understanding of Allah. Where she expected distant majesty, she encountered intimate compassion. The stark contrast between this loving embrace and her previous concept of God left her bewildered and awestruck. As the light coalesced into a recognizable form, Aisha's confusion gave way to shock. Before her stood Jesus Christ, not as the mere prophet she had been taught to revere, but as a divine being of incomprehensible power and love. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. This was God himself, in a form she had always believed to be blasphemous. Every facet of Aisha's religious understanding crumbled in the face of this revelation. The God she encountered was not the unknowable, distant Allah of her Islamic faith, but a personal, relational being who desired intimate connection with his creation. Jesus' presence challenged the very core of her beliefs about God's nature and humanity's relationship with the divine. As Aisha grappled with this paradigm shift, she began to comprehend the profound differences between Islamic and Christian concepts of God. Where Islam emphasized God's absolute oneness and transcendence, she now witnessed a God who willingly entered into human existence. The idea of divine incarnation, once rejected as impossible, now stood before her as an undeniable reality. The encounter deepened, and Aisha sensed she was on the cusp of an even greater revelation. The air seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the very fabric of reality was preparing to unveil its deepest secrets. She felt herself being drawn into a mystery that transcended human understanding, yet was somehow made accessible through Christ's presence. In a moment of transcendent clarity, Aisha grasped the truth of the Trinity. She perceived God as an eternal communion of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, distinct yet inseparable, unified in essence and purpose. This concept, which she had previously dismissed as polytheistic, now revealed itself as the ultimate expression of divine love and relationship. With this understanding came a profound realization of Christ's role in salvation. Aisha saw that his life, death, and resurrection were not merely historical events, but the linchpin of God's redemptive plan for humanity. The insufficiency of works-based salvation became glaringly apparent in the light of Christ's sacrificial love. As the full implications of this divine encounter washed over her, Aisha felt simultaneously humbled and exalted. Her previous certainties about faith and salvation had been upended, replaced by a deeper, more profound truth. She understood now that salvation came not through adherence to religious laws, but through a personal relationship with the God who had revealed himself in Jesus Christ. As the radiant presence of Christ began to recede, Aisha found herself being drawn towards another scene. The atmosphere shifted, and she sensed she was about to witness something of great significance. With her newfound understanding of divine truth, Aisha prepared herself to observe the judgment of souls, a process that would further illuminate the nature of salvation and the consequences of one's earthly choices. The air grew heavy with an otherworldly tension as souls began to materialize before Aisha's eyes. What she was about to see would shatter her understanding of divine justice and mercy, revealing a truth more profound and devastating than she could have imagined. Aisha watched in awe as countless souls arrived for judgment, their expressions a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Among them, she recognized familiar faces from her Muslim community, respected imams, devout worshippers, and even her own family members. As the judgment began, a wave of shock rippled through the gathering. The Muslims she had known in life suddenly realized that their sincere devotion to Islam had not secured their salvation. The anguish of those facing eternal separation from God was palpable. Aisha witnessed their pain as they grasped the full weight of their choices. Souls cried out in despair, their voices a haunting chorus of regret and sorrow. The unbearable reality of their fate, an eternity apart from the source of all love and goodness, seemed to crush their very essence. As the judgment unfolded, Aisha began to understand the true criteria by which souls were being evaluated. To her astonishment, it wasn't the scale of good deeds versus sins that she had always imagined. Instead, the determining factor was faith in Christ. She saw souls who had led seemingly righteous lives being turned away, while others who had stumbled greatly in life were welcomed with open arms. The key difference was their acceptance or rejection of Christ's sacrifice. The concepts of grace and redemption took on new meaning as Aisha observed this divine court. She realized that God's desire was not to condemn, but to save. The exclusivity of salvation through Christ wasn't about divine favoritism, but rather the very nature of spiritual reality. Yet this truth brought little comfort as she grappled with the implications for her loved ones who had died believing in Islam. As the judgment continued, Aisha witnessed something that sent shockwaves through her being. Christians who had compromised the truth by teaching that all religions lead to God faced a particularly severe judgment. Their fate seemed even more grievous than that of non-believers, for they had known the truth and yet led others astray. This revelation highlighted the immense responsibility that comes with spiritual knowledge and the dire consequences of diluting divine truth. The weight of these revelations pressed upon Aisha's consciousness. She understood now that the torment in hell was not just physical, but also spiritual and emotional. Souls experienced the unbearable sorrow of knowing they had separated themselves from God forever. Yet even more devastating was the realization that this suffering was completely avoidable through Christ's sacrifice. Billions were choosing hell by rejecting this gift of salvation. As the judgment scene began to fade, Aisha sensed she was being drawn towards an even more terrifying revelation. The true nature of hell, far worse than anything she had been taught in Islamic teachings, was about to be unveiled before her. With a mixture of dread and a desperate need to understand, Aisha prepared herself to witness the ultimate consequence of rejecting divine love. The depths of hell unfolded before Aisha's eyes, revealing a truth more shocking than any fire and brimstone sermon. What she saw wasn't just physical torment, but a spiritual anguish so profound it threatened to shatter her very understanding of existence. Could this really be the fate that awaited billions? Aisha witnessed souls engulfed in flames that burned but never consumed, their pain unending and their cries for mercy echoing in anguish. Yet the physical agony paled in comparison to the spiritual and emotional torment she observed. These souls bore the unbearable sorrow of knowing they had separated themselves from God forever, a realization that seemed to cause more suffering than any external punishment could inflict. As Aisha took in this horrifying scene, a startling truth dawned on her. This fate wasn't a divine punishment imposed from above, but rather the consequence of rejecting Christ's offer of salvation. The souls in hell had chosen this separation, even if they hadn't fully understood the implications of their choice in life. This realization challenged everything Aisha had been taught about divine justice and the nature of the afterlife. The concept of hell as a place of chosen separation rather than imposed punishment began to take shape in Aisha's mind. She saw that God's love and desire for relationship with humanity remained constant, even in this place of torment. The flames of hell seemed to be fueled not by divine wrath, but by the very absence of God's presence, an absence these souls had chosen for themselves. Aisha grappled with the theological implications of what she was witnessing. She recalled debates among Islamic scholars about the nature and purpose of hell, but those discussions now seemed woefully inadequate in the face of this terrible reality. The question of how a loving God could allow such a place to exist took on new dimensions as she began to understand that hell was, in a sense, the ultimate expression of human free will. As Aisha's comprehension deepened, she felt herself being drawn towards an even greater revelation. She sensed that she was about to glimpse God's perspective on this terrible fate, a viewpoint that would challenge her understanding of divine love and justice even further. The anticipation of this insight filled her with a mixture of dread and desperate curiosity. In a moment of profound clarity, Aisha grasped the heart-wrenching truth. Hell was entirely avoidable. Christ's sacrifice had opened a way for every soul to escape this fate, regardless of their past actions or beliefs. The tragedy of hell wasn't just the suffering of its inhabitants, but the fact that each of them could have chosen a different path. As this section of her journey came to a close, Aisha felt her consciousness being pulled towards a new revelation. The horrors of hell began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of warmth and light. She understood that she was about to witness the opposite of eternal separation, the true nature of heaven and the fullness of God's love. With a mixture of relief and anticipation, Aisha prepared herself for the next stage of her otherworldly experience, knowing that what she was about to see would complete her understanding of the divine plan for humanity. As the warmth enveloped her, Aisha found herself face to face with a love so profound it defied description. But nothing could have prepared her for the moment she witnessed an event that would shatter her understanding of salvation itself. What cosmic truth was about to unfold before her eyes? Aisha felt herself being drawn into the very presence of God in heaven. The overwhelming sense of love and holiness that surrounded her was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was intimate and immediate, a stark contrast to the distant and unknowable divine love she had understood in Islam. This presence was not just a concept or an idea, but a tangible reality that permeated every fiber of her being. As she basked in this divine radiance, Aisha suddenly found herself witnessing a scene that would forever alter her perception of salvation. Before her eyes, the crucifixion of Christ unfolded, not as a historical event, but from heaven's perspective. She saw that this was not merely a martyr's death, but God himself bearing the weight of all sin. The profound significance of the cross in God's plan for salvation became crystal clear to her in that moment. Aisha watched in awe as the full scope of divine love and the cost of redemption played out before her. She saw how the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, existed in perfect love, inviting humanity into this relationship. This revelation stood in stark contrast to her previous Islamic teachings about the nature of God. The love she witnessed was not distant or conditional, but intimate and all-encompassing. As the crucifixion scene unfolded, Aisha began to understand the true nature of grace. She saw how the sacraments of the Orthodox Church, which she had previously dismissed as empty rituals, were actually channels of divine grace. The reality of God's love and sacrifice challenged everything she had believed about earning salvation through good works. With each passing moment, Aisha felt herself on the brink of a final transformative revelation. The pieces of the divine puzzle were falling into place, and she sensed that she was about to grasp a truth that would change everything. What could possibly be more profound than what she had already witnessed? In a flash of divine illumination, Aisha fully grasped the insufficiency of works-based salvation. She saw how her lifelong efforts to earn God's favor through good deeds and religious observance paled in comparison to the freely given grace of Christ. The weight of this realization was both liberating and humbling. Everything she had believed about securing her place in the afterlife was turned upside down. As the heavenly vision began to fade, Aisha felt herself being drawn back towards her physical body. She knew that her journey was coming to an end, but the truth she had witnessed would remain with her forever. The transition back to earthly existence loomed before her, bringing with it the challenge of reconciling her profound spiritual experience with the life she had known. How would she begin to process and share what she had seen? The aftermath of her otherworldly journey promised to be just as transformative as the experience itself. Aisha's eyes fluttered open, the harsh hospital lights a stark contrast to the ethereal glow she had just experienced. Confusion washed over her as she struggled to reconcile the spiritual realm she had visited with the sterile reality of the medical ward. The beeping monitors and concerned faces of doctors seemed surreal, almost dreamlike, compared to the profound truths she had witnessed. As her senses sharpened, Aisha became acutely aware that something within her had fundamentally changed. The spiritual awakening she had undergone during those 7 minutes of clinical death had altered her very essence. Her Muslim identity, once the cornerstone of her existence, now felt like a distant memory, replaced by a newfound understanding of divine love and salvation. The challenges of reconciling her new beliefs with her lifelong devotion to Islam loomed large. How could she explain to her family, her community, that everything they held sacred was based on a misunderstanding? The weight of this revelation pressed heavily upon her, threatening to overwhelm her still recovering body and mind. Yet as Aisha grappled with these spiritual quandaries, she became aware of another inexplicable phenomenon. The leukemia that had brought her to death's door seemed to have vanished. Doctors marveled at her rapid recovery, unable to explain the miraculous healing that had occurred alongside her near-death experience. This physical transformation mirrored the profound spiritual change she had undergone, serving as tangible evidence of her otherworldly journey. Aisha's dramatic religious conversion from Islam to Orthodox Christianity was a rarity, even among those who claim near-death experiences. The completeness of her transformation, coupled with her physical healing, defied conventional explanation. As she lay in her hospital bed, she knew that sharing her experience would be met with skepticism, disbelief, and potentially hostility from those closest to her. Despite the daunting prospect of facing her community with this new truth, Aisha felt a growing sense of purpose. The divine love she had encountered compelled her to share her story, regardless of the personal cost. She began to contemplate how she would convey the ineffable truths she had witnessed, knowing that her words would fall short of capturing the full magnitude of her experience. After much soul-searching and internal struggle, Aisha made the decision to fully embrace Orthodox Christianity. She understood that this choice would come at a great cost, potentially alienating her family, losing her standing in the community, and facing ostracism from all she had known. Yet the truth she had encountered in the afterlife was too powerful, too transformative to deny. As Aisha prepared to leave the hospital, she steeled herself for the reactions that would await her. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with challenges, but she drew strength from the divine love she had experienced. With a mix of trepidation and resolve, she prepared to step into a new life, one that would test her faith, her relationships, and her very identity. The ripples of her near-death experience were about to spread outward, touching the lives of those around her in ways she could scarcely imagine. What happens when a deeply rooted Muslim community confronts a miracle they can't explain? Aisha's conversion was about to send shockwaves through her world, challenging everything her friends and family thought they knew about faith, loyalty, and truth. As Aisha sat down with her husband Karim, she could feel her heart racing. How could she possibly explain the profound transformation she had undergone? The words tumbled out, a mix of awe and trepidation, as she recounted her near-death experience and newfound faith in Christ. Karim's face shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to concern. He struggled to reconcile the woman before him with the devout Muslim he had known for decades. "Have you lost your mind?" Karim finally asked, his voice a mixture of anger and fear. "This illness must have affected your thinking. You can't possibly believe this nonsense." But Aisha's conviction remained unshaken. As news of her conversion spread through their tight-knit Muslim community, the reactions ranged from shocked whispers to outright hostility. Friends she had known for years now treated her like a pariah. Women who had once eagerly attended her Quran studies now crossed the street to avoid her. The mosque, once a second home, became a place of uncomfortable stares and hushed conversations. The rejection cut deep, but it was the isolation that truly tested Aisha's resolve. Family gatherings became tense affairs, with relatives alternating between attempts to bring her back to her senses and treating her as if she had betrayed them all. Aisha found herself adrift, cut off from the support system that had defined her life for so long. Integrating into her new Orthodox Christian community proved to be a different kind of challenge. While welcomed with open arms, Aisha struggled to navigate the unfamiliar rituals and traditions. The divine liturgy, with its incense and chants, moved her to tears even as she fumbled through the unfamiliar prayers. The priest, patient and understanding, helped her make sense of her experience and find her place in this new spiritual home. Yet even as she found solace in her new faith, Aisha grappled with the weight of her decision. The challenges faced by converts from Islam to Christianity were numerous and often heartbreaking. Family rejection, social isolation, and the struggle to reconcile past beliefs with new truths were constant companions on her journey. As the months passed, Aisha began to find a new purpose amidst the turmoil. Her experience, so profound and life-altering, became a testimony she felt compelled to share. She began to pray daily for her Muslim brothers and sisters, hoping that they too might have their eyes opened to the truth she had witnessed. 5 years after her conversion, Aisha noticed a subtle shift. Some of her old Muslim friends, initially repelled by her change of faith, began to reach out. They admitted to their own doubts and questions, curious about the experience that had so dramatically altered her life. These conversations, tentative at first, began to build bridges of understanding between two worlds that had seemed irreconcilable. As Aisha prepared to share her story with a wider audience, she realized that her journey was far from over. The ripples of her near-death experience continued to spread, challenging assumptions and opening hearts to new possibilities. In the face of ongoing challenges, Aisha found strength in the divine love she had encountered, ready to be a light in the darkness for others seeking truth. 5 years after her near-death experience, Aisha Rafik found herself in a place she never imagined possible. The journey from devout Muslim to Orthodox Christian had been fraught with challenges, yet filled with unexpected blessings. As she reflected on her transformation, Aisha marveled at the profound shift in her understanding of God, faith, and salvation. The God she now knew was not the distant, unknowable deity of her Islamic upbringing, but a personal, loving presence that desired intimate relationship with his creation. This realization had reshaped every aspect of her spiritual life. Where once she had strived to earn divine favor through good works and strict adherence to religious law, Aisha now reveled in the grace freely given through Christ's sacrifice. Yet, the path of her new faith was not without its thorns. Aisha still felt the sting of rejection from many in her former Muslim community. Family gatherings remained tense affairs, with some relatives treating her conversion as a betrayal of their shared heritage. The isolation she experienced in the wake of her transformation had been a heavy burden to bear. Despite these challenges, Aisha found unexpected blessings in her new life. She discovered a depth of community within her Orthodox church that she had never known before. The rituals and traditions that once seemed foreign now brought her comfort and a sense of connection to the divine. Most surprisingly, Aisha found that some of her Muslim friends had begun to reach out, curious about her experience. Today, 5 years later, I'm fully healed in body and soul, Aisha reflected. Some of my Muslim friends have secretly reached out admitting their own doubts and asking questions about my experience. These quiet conversations became a source of hope for Aisha, a sign that her journey might open doors for others seeking truth. Aisha's approach to sharing her faith had evolved significantly since her conversion. Gone was the certainty of her Muslim days, replaced by a humble recognition of the mystery of divine love. She no longer sought to convince others through argument or apologetics. Instead, Aisha found power in simply sharing her story, allowing the profound truth of her experience to speak for itself. The nature of true spiritual transformation, Aisha realized, was not merely a change of beliefs or religious practices. It was a fundamental reshaping of one's entire being, a reorientation of the soul towards divine love. This understanding influenced every aspect of how she lived out her faith and shared it with others. As Aisha looked to the future, she felt a growing sense of anticipation. Her story, so personal yet universal in its themes of redemption and divine love, seemed poised to touch even more lives. She prayed daily for her Muslim brothers and sisters, hoping that they too might encounter the truth she had witnessed. I pray daily for my Muslim brothers and sisters to have their own eyes open before it's too late, Aisha shared, her voice filled with compassion and urgency. Her journey from sincere Muslim to Orthodox Christian was complete, yet Aisha knew that the ripples of her transformation would continue to spread outward, challenging assumptions and opening hearts to new possibilities. As Aisha prepared to share her story with a wider audience, she felt a mixture of trepidation and resolve. The truth she had encountered in the afterlife was too powerful, too transformative to keep to herself. With a heart full of divine love and a spirit strengthened by adversity, Aisha stepped forward, ready to be a light in the darkness for others seeking truth. Aisha's near-death experience revealed profound truths that challenge conventional understanding of salvation and eternity. Her journey from devout Muslim to Orthodox Christian illuminates the stark differences between works-based and grace-based salvation. The vivid encounters in the afterlife, from witnessing respected Muslim figures descending into darkness to experiencing the overwhelming love of Christ, paint a picture of divine judgment that transcends religious boundaries. As viewers contemplate Aisha's story, they are invited to examine their own beliefs about the afterlife. Her account raises profound questions about the nature of God, the purpose of human existence, and the path to eternal life. The stark reality of hell as a place of chosen separation from God, juxtaposed with the indescribable love and holiness of heaven, serves as a powerful catalyst for spiritual introspection. Aisha's transformation speaks to the urgency of seeking spiritual truth. Her heartfelt plea echoes through her testimony. I pray daily for my Muslim brothers and sisters to have their own eyes open before it's too late. This call to action resonates not just with Muslims, but with all who seek to understand the mysteries of eternity. Aisha's journey stands as a testament to the power of divine love and the life-altering nature of encountering truth beyond the veil of mortality.